Social media has evolved a lot over the last few years. Twitter became X, Meta banned news content in Canada, YouTube for some has replaced traditional TV, and TikTok blew up in Canada during the pandemic. But now, for some people, social media, it's not just a hobby, it's a career. According to Social Blade, a website that tracks all of this, there are more than 90 million content creators over 5 platforms. 68 million of them are on YouTube, 11 million on Instagram, and 7.3 million on Twitch. TikTok, despite its perceived popularity, has the fewest at 1.5 million, which is still a lot of people. For this week's episode of This is Saskatchewan, the podcast I'm hosting here, I wanted to know, can you make money as an influencer or content creator in Saskatchewan? The short answer is yes. But people get real weird when you start asking about the financials of it. But I kept digging, and I did get some answers. Today, we're going to talk about working in the creator economy with some big-name Saski creators. We also want to hear from you. Do you have a favorite regional content creator? What draws you in? Call 1-800-716-2221 or send us an email, bluesky@cbc.ca. So before I bring in the guests, let's start with the podcast. This is Saskatchewan. I really did want to try to unpack the creator economy in our province, and I learned really quickly that people do not like talking about money, especially if they're paid to sell you something. I talked with a lot of creators who were very interested in telling me about what they do, until I asked them what they get paid to do for it. That was different with Steve Boutillier. He's a Regina-based teacher that has been for more than a decade, and he recently walked away from teaching for life as an online content creator. In politics, you would know him as Steve Boots. Did you not like teaching?
I loved teaching. I consider what I do now still teaching in a different format. I kind of think of myself as like social studies teacher to the Canadian internet in a way. So to me, it's the same skill sets. It's the same. There's interpersonal relationships with my chat when I'm streaming or with my Discord server. There's, teaching. There's answering questions. There's all sorts of stuff. It's really, it's shocking how similar the experiences are. So to me, it really just feels like I'm doing a lot of the same things in a very different format.
Would you go back to teaching?
In a second. If social media doesn't work out for whatever reason, no question.
Okay, let's talk about money.
Okay.
Are you making money?
In the strictest sense, yes.
What do you mean by that?
It's a tricky question to answer because it's a huge range. Because I took such a bet on myself, there was a number of months there where I was burning through savings, just trying to keep afloat. And now I'm a lot closer to being able to cover my bills and a lot closer to being able to live, I would say, a pretty comparable lifestyle to what I was living when I was teaching. Like I'm not, let's just say I have not exceeded any of the teaching salary ranges yet. But it's also a tricky thing because it's hard to gauge what kind of living you're making when it's social media because there's always going to be ebbs and flows and hills and valleys. Like I'm a politics creator in the middle of an election, so it's good times right now. What's that going to look like when the news cycle slows down in like July and August? When it comes to politics specifically.
Okay, but can you give me a sense of how much you make on a month-to-month basis, even just a range of dollar value for people?
So I checked this. So YouTube actually gives me monthly averages. So my monthly average going back, I think it's 6 months, is like $1,000 to $3,000. So like these are not large sums of money, but they're not laughable either. Mm-hmm. And you'll have multiple revenue streams. So like I stream on Twitch and I've got a Patreon and things like that sort of help to keep things afloat.
Do you have brand deals or product placement?
I just did my first brand deal last week, and they're generally fairly limited because in order to start getting brand deals, generally you need to hit it. There's sort of two things that need to happen. You need to hit a critical mass when it comes to users, but there's also brand risk. Brands, weirdly enough, don't like to do a lot of advertising with people who maybe put up controversial opinions or maybe who challenge status quo opinions. Or in the case of myself, a lot of very capitalistic brands are less eager to sponsor anti-capitalist content, right? So it depends a lot on your niche when it comes to things like ad buys. So I've been very fortunate to have some organizations that align with my values who have come on board, but that's a very new development.
was content creator Steve Boots. Steve's busy enough, he's actually been able to hire an editor to help him with his videos, but he's not represented by an agency. But there are many agencies repping content creators right across the continent. One of those is Creator Aid, and based in Moose Jaw, you'll find their CEO, Doug Campbell. I asked him, can people legitimately make a living at this?
Absolutely. I mean, it really depends on what your ambitions are. So we have creators that we work with that come to us that are looking to potentially make this a full-time, job per se. And then we have some that they just want to do it on the weekends or in their free time, and it's their passion project. But in this day and age, in what we call the creator economy, is that there's a lot of trust and a lot of eyeballs on these folks, and there is definitely an ability for them to make a significant income at this point.
What kind of range of pay are we talking about?
I mean, the reality is that the compensation for creators is highly variable, and it really depends on things like how big of an audience they have, the platform that audience exists on, the type of content that they produce, the deliverables, even the brands, or partner specific goals. So, what we found through 2 years is that there's not a one size fits all approach, as, most of those partnerships are kind of custom built to meet the needs of both the creator and the business. But that being said, we facilitate partnerships in the range of a few $100s to well into six figures. So it's a pretty wide spectrum.
When you say well into six figures, is that one brand deal for one creator, or would that be a career figure, like an annual income?
It can be one deal in specific, depending on the creator, depending on the brand per se. So that would be more of like what we would call an ambassadorship. So a brand and a creator that are really kind of getting married. So per se, so that there's a real big intersection of the content and the brand. Those are obviously longer steer, take a little bit longer for those things to happen, but they're definitely out there for the right types of creators that have the right types of content, and for a brand that's really looking for that alignment with that type of creator and that audience.
How common are those dollar figures, though, in the creator economy in, say, Saskatchewan?
I'd say that, in Saskatchewan in specific, a lot of those brand deals are coming from, let's say, when you're looking at six-figure deals, that's multinational brands. In regional size deals, it would be less than that. So like, that's not, it's hard to say, because again, that compensation is variable depending on the goal, depending on the creator, depending on the goals of that brand in specific, but it wouldn't be as common for, let's say, more of a regional brand.
So you'd need like a national or international following to land a deal of that size with one brand, probably.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. Is it a sustainable long-term career option for a creator, or is this a make the money and get out situation?
No, I think we believe in our mission to help, help empower creators everywhere. I think that it's a sustainable venture. We've seen it to be sustainable for multiple creators that are doing this full time today. There's there's a bunch of different ways for a creator to maybe generate that income. They come at a disadvantage though in Canada. So within Canada, the disadvantage is that they don't monetize their organic content as well. So the Facebooks, Metas, the TikToks don't necessarily pay as well for content monetization. In Canada, it's one of the things that it was on our list to advocate for. But in the U.S., as compared to their U.S. counterparts, they earn significantly more just on that organic content alone. So partnerships for creators in Canada are significantly important to allow them to continue to do what they love.
Just how big is the creator economy? There's a lot of creators. How much money is floating around in that economy?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Because these types of brand and local partnerships are becoming more common, platform differences, and how that's growing and growing so quickly is that it's quickly becoming one of the fastest growing sectors. Right now, the estimate is that there's about 33 billion, that's with a B, that's going to be spent in 2025 within that creator economy globally.
Doug Campbell, the CEO of Creator Aid. He is based in Moose Jaw. Time now to bring in our guests. I have not had this much feedback or excited people messaging me about a show in a very long time. My first guest today, pretty well known in Saskatchewan. Quick Dick McDick has quite the following on YouTube, Instagram, and X. He's a cattle and grain farmer near Foam Lake in a little place called Tufnell, and that's how he makes his living. But as an online personality, he's gained quite a following as something as a side hustle. His YouTube bio says, if you like to laugh and cannot be easily offended, you should watch. But if you have no sense of humor, are a child or near children or easily offended, he's not your jam. He has promised to me he's not going to swear today. Dick, welcome to Blue Sky.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Sam. Yeah, it's my switch is flipped here. Even though I am joining you from the calving barn, we should be in good shape here for very G-rated family content.
Before I bring in our next guest, can we talk about how I figured out what your actual real name is? Because I phoned you earlier this week, and I said, "Hi, it's Sam from CBC," and then I had this moment of, "Oh my God, what's his real name?" For people who are wondering, because Quick Dick McDick is quite the moniker. What's your real name? I know now, but they don't.
So my name is Dixon Delorme. And Dixon is my first name. It's crazy because I've been cursed with two last names, right? When everyone's like, "What's your name?" And I'm like, "Well, it's Dixon." They're like, "No, like, what's your first name?" I'm like, "No, I know how exchanging names works. My name is Dixon, right?" So as a being a part of a community in a small town and in farms everywhere, and especially my parents, my family, everybody as a kid, my name is Dixon, but everybody called me Dick, and like that's not an uncommon name in a ranching community or farming community. And the other part of that is everyone's like, "Oh, so Richard." I'm like, no, like the name Dick has nothing to do with Richard. You know what I mean? My name's Dixon, Dick for short. And yeah, so that's kind of where the premise of the name came from. But don't worry, it happens to everybody. They're like, "So like, what is your name?" Right? And it's okay. It's all good.
Well, our other guest today also is one of two similar names, has quite the following and really likes to make people laugh. Leroy and Leroy started really growing in popularity 3 years ago. They say they're just here to remind you that there's always something to do and probably point out some ridiculous stuff you may have noticed. And most recently, they were in Las Vegas rubbing elbows with WWE stars at WrestleMania. Leroy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I feel like I pale in comparison to like Jey Uso and the guys that are getting all the attention over on WWE.
Yeah, that was an absolute blast getting to meet a few WWE superstars. I was huge into it like back in high school, and then didn't watch for like 20 years. And got back into it the last couple of years, and just through some connections wound up getting into to meet a few of them and do some Canadian trivia.
Total sidebar, because I'm a nut about it now too, apparently, because it comes to Netflix and suddenly it's on our house all the time. Who's your favorite?
Who's my favorite? Oh my! After doing those interviews, it's Chelsea Green. She was amazing, like the most wonderful person ever. But like Kevin Owens was probably my favorite going in. He was a great guy as well, but Chelsea Green bumped him for top spot.
His neck injuries really concern me. I'm a Cody Rhodes girl now, apparently. Dick, do you follow wrestling?
I am in the camp of followed it kind of when I was in school. Even like had the thumb wrestlers there where you could, But I was like more the Rowdy Roddy Piper and King Kong Bundy area there. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I've kind of. I did re-look into it when I was doing a show in Maryfield, which is apparently where Brock Lesnar is now, but unfortunately he was not there at the time. I've just given you my extensive wrestling knowledge in the matter of 30 seconds.
That's okay. I really do feel like I could do a whole show on wrestling now, which tells you my personality is all over the place. So I'm going to start with you, Dick. Tell me, can you make a living as a content creator? I ask you this knowing you're calving right now.
I think there's absolutely a living to be made at it. I every now and then I'll go in and do like farm safety, social media talks at schools and everything. And I actually have slides that have my generalized income on it from being if you want to call it an influencer, which I don't know how people get figured out that I'm under the influence all the time when I'm doing social media, but I guess it is what it is. But if you pursue it hard, I think the hardest thing to get going in social media is you need to be able to grab that traction. You need to be able to get views. You need to be able to get clicks. You need to be able to get impressions. Like I think that's where a lot of people stumble and have a hard time, because it's usually just by luck that you break into it for most of the people that I talk to. And there's a lot of people that put a lot of time and effort into trying to, adjust SEO or do a bunch of different tricks to try and get into the algorithm. And they just can't do it. I think there's a lot of talented people out there that just haven't been discovered or can't break into it. But once you're into it, there's definitely lots of different ways that you can make a living at it. Just whether you choose to do it or not, right?
Would you say that you make your living doing that?
Absolutely not. No, I keep my two lives. I stay very separate. I mean, obviously, I showcase a lot of what we do on the farm here, but I am first and foremost a farmer rancher. I also work for a guy just outside of Tupperware here. We kind of farm together, and that's it. This is what I do full time, and all that other stuff is it's kind of a side hustle that I do with all my copious amounts of spare time that I have, because farming and ranching doesn't take any of that, right?
When you talk about generalized income, how much of your income would you say comes from the social media? Because you're making your money from speaking and going to events and stuff now, not in the same way. Like, content creators don't make typically mad money from things like YouTube and Instagram and all of those things because of the way the platforms work in Canada. Yeah,
that's right, and that was a good point that was on your earlier bit there is how it's structured here in Canada. But like, even if you were to take a YouTube video of mine, a recent one I did, I mean, it's just up over. I checked it before we came on. It's right close to 200,000 views, and like off of that single one, because of how I structure advertising on it, I mean, that was about $800 off of that video, which isn't chump change. And over the life of the video, it'll probably do okay, right? But I mean, I structure my advertising a little bit different on YouTube as well. I don't do live streams. I don't do mid-roll ads. There's a whole bunch of things I don't do, and I don't do it because when I'm watching YouTube, it's usually to try and learn how to fix something. And then I get really mad when I have to try and sit through an ad. And I'm like, I just want to fix this radiator, So I don't do mid-roll and a lot of stuff. But yes, like I'd say the lucrative part of what I do, I've been fortunate enough to basically, I mean, I've got a side stand-up comedy career, and I do keynote speeches, and I do trade show appearances and stuff like that. And like, that's where you generally get a better part of your revenue from. If we were just to go from social media itself, I mean, for me to average, $1,500 a month off of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, I guess it is now. I mean, that would be doing well. That being said, I mean, I don't spend a lot of time pursuing the advertising part of it online, right? More of my stuff is real life, getting in front of people, and that's where you do quite well.
What kind of time do you put in? Just I'm going to get to Leroy in a second, but I want to ask, for that $800 video, you have so many cuts and so many different situations in all your videos. You don't just sit down and talk. So how long does it take you to put together one video?
It's a good question. It depends. It depends on the topic, and it depends on what's happening. I mean, there's quite a bit of research involved in some of the things that I talk about. But even if you look at there's a couple of ones that I just recently did, which is basically walking you start to finish through the life of a cow. I mean, I've got footage throughout the course of it's about 40 minutes total. I've got footage from drones and that I was taking talking to the camera spanned over the course of 2 years. And it's a matter of getting all your stuff put together. Like I'd say I've got upwards of 70 hours into those two specific tiny little bits that I do, right? But it's just a matter of how much time you're willing to put in to showcase what we do, and hopefully in a elevating manner where people sit and watch and laugh and chuckle a little bit and still learn something along the way. So, and then there's some of them where like you'll just do a couple of hits back to back here, there kind of thing, or whatever, and they come together pretty quick. But editing definitely takes up a lot of time.
Leroy, can you make money as a content creator?
You can. It's a bit of a grind, and I think actually listening to Quick Dick talking about the live appearances and stuff, I'm like, that's something maybe I'm going to have to look into more because that sounds like a great avenue. I've gone a different route, and it's mainly working with brands, businesses, whether it's small businesses or big or kind of everything in between. I do a lot of sponsored content now, but it has it's worked out for me. I did radio for 18 years. I worked for the Sask Health Authority in media relations for a couple of years, and I walked away from that job in media relations, which was probably the hardest decision I've ever made because it was like the perfect gig. You've worked in radio for a long time, Sam. You know how the radio life is. And
it's not easy.
To
it's
get
consistent,
into
but it's not easy. Yeah.
Right. But to get into a position like that, like with the Sask Health Authority, like I had, where that's what a lot of people are looking for, is a role like that coming out of media. It wasn't easy to walk away from, but it was at a time where I just had to bet on myself and go, you know, if I'm going to ever make a run at this full time and see where I can take Leroy and Leroy, I need to kind of take the jump. And so that's what I did. And I've learned a lot along the way, but it's been great.
So in your instance, you have completely left your other job then, and this is your full-time gig.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I've to be able to do the Leroy and Leroy stuff full time. It's just there's a lot of travel. Whether I'm going to small towns, I love my favorite content is when I just roll into like a random small town in Saskatchewan, like Tuxford, where I showcase their hockey rink in a field and a pile of wood, whatever, you know, stuff like that.
That's my favorite content of yours. It's awesome. I love it. Yeah.
I appreciate that. So yeah, but whether it's that or like you were talking about, like I was in Vegas and got to do some stuff with some WWE wrestlers. There's a lot of travel involved. So to really do it full time, it was I had to just leap into it.
So who pays for that? Like who pays for you to go to, I say the middle of nowhere, but I say that fondly because I've grown up in this province my whole life, or to go to WrestleMania? Like are you paying for it and hoping it pays off? Or are people saying, hey, we'll give you some money to come here?
It depends on the trip for me. With the WrestleMania stuff, I did not get paid anything to go. I got connected kind of through Fanatics the last little while and had an opportunity to do some stuff with them, and through them got to meet some wrestlers, and then with that connection, thought, you know what, like this is a chance to make some great content. So let's go to Vegas. Let's make this one happen. Other times, you know, like I'll plan a trip to say Calgary and we'll put it out to some Calgary businesses and see what sponsored content I can do while I'm there, and then also make kind of organic content along the way.
And you're working with Creator Aid too, right?
Yeah.
How has that worked out for you, having an agency help you out?
It's been really good. I think the part that I didn't like before when it came to monetizing, again, like we talked about how like it would be so much easier in the States doing what I'm doing and what we're all doing. There's someone who posts what they make on TikTok, and they have a third of the followers I have, and they're getting checks from TikTok every month for like multiple thousands of dollars. And in Canada on TikTok, we make not a cent. So the part that I hated was the negotiating and the finding the brand deals and that kind. Like, I just like to create. So working with Creator Aid has allowed me to step back from that part of it. I don't have to sell. I don't have to. I just get to meet people and create with them, and that's kind of been the great part for me. It's allowed me to focus on that. It's been a learning curve along the way, but it's been really good.
Can you explain to me the Leroy and Leroy personality? Because you are Leroy, but there's another Leroy, and there's the hats, and you're together, and sometimes you're... Explain to me. You got two names. Explain to me how it works. Put this to bed for me in my brain.
Sam, I'll give you the full run back of how it started. Back in 2017, I had a friend who really wanted to make YouTube videos, and one night we were working at a Moose Jaw Warrior game together, and there was three of us that were on the headset. I was playing music. My other friend was announcing. One of the guy who was who was eventually be Leroy behind the camera was working one of the cameras, and someone said, "There's nothing to do in Moose Jaw," and I said, "Well, there's always something to do." And we said, "That's it. That's what we're going to make videos about." And the next day, the three of us showed up in Waccamaw in Moose Jaw, a beautiful park. And we said our first thing to do will be feeding birds. So we did a video about how people say there's nothing to do, but you can always feed birds. And when we showed up, my friend said, "Hey, I think we should call ourselves Harry and Lloyd." And I said, "That's Dumb and Dumber." And I had just rewatched the famous YouTube video with Leroy Jenkins. If you're not familiar with that, you'll have to look it up afterwards. But I said, "Let's be Leroy and Leroy," and it was kind of like that. This is Daryl and my other brother Daryl, and we said, "That's it. That's what we'll run with." And over time, it has become. Again, men, another secret has become just me. But so there's a few variations of Leroy behind the camera. You'll often hear me say Leroy Jr. behind the camera. That's because when my son's back there, he is very specific that I have to say Leroy Jr. So that's kind of the shtick and how it's come to be. And it's been a lot of fun even with that. Like last year, I went to a lot of rider games and people would always ask, "Hey, where's Leroy behind the camera?" And my response was always, "I don't know. I can never find him when I need him. He's wandering around here somewhere."
Do you ever go out of character?
Yeah. Well, not. I do. I think the nice part for me has been this is very recognizable.
Yes.
And so when I'm out, I meet a lot of people, and I love getting to meet people. But I'm also somewhat by nature an introvert. So at times when I need to decompress and not have that, I can go out of character
the disguise
and not really be known. And I've kind of enjoyed that part of it as well.
On that note, I want to bring in Carlie right away, but I do, Dick with the beard. If you were to shave your beard, would people know who you are?
I've done it once so far. And I think it was 3 years ago. We did for Close Cuts for Kids, Saskatchewan Cancer Foundation fundraiser in Yorkton, and we did a Save It or Shave It campaign, and Shave It won. And I'll tell you what, not only could you go to the grocery store and not have to talk to anybody, but you were like I saved so much money on shampoo, it was ridiculous.
Okay, I want to bring in our next guest. She works in a different space than these two gentlemen. Carlie Krtolica. Did I get that right?
Impressive.
Thank you. Author, stylist, influencer. You might know her as Style to Sparkle. She's based in Calgary now, but grew up in Saskatchewan. Where in Saskatchewan did you grow up, Carlie?
So I kind of grew up all over Saskatchewan. I lived in Saskatoon for a bit of my childhood, mainly in Regina, and my grandparents still have a family farm just outside of North Battleford.
Okay. So you wrote a book called Chasing Likes, and it's all about the highs and lows of what it's like to be an influencer.
Yes.
Were you able to make a living strictly as an influencer?
I was for a time, yes. It's one of those things where I feel like I kind of saw the influencer market kind of rise and fall a little bit. And when I say fall, I feel like it's because of potentially oversaturation now, just with how many content creators there are out there. I was an influencer for like before COVID happened. And I part of it, I think, is when everybody was at home, they're like, well, I have nothing better to do. I might as well just start creating content. And everybody decided that they were an influencer now. But yes, it was for a time my full-time living.
So I want to talk to you about competition and the market, because one of the things you talk about in your book is competition, and you call it adolescent behavior, which I really think is a nice way of saying catty garbage. So what goes on in the influencer space when you are competing for not just likes and follows, but brand deals?
Yeah, I think the other guys spoke to it really well too. I mean, it is different up here in Canada. There aren't as many Canadian brands, which is one thing. So you're, trying to fight with those, and compete with those US influencers to try and get those brand deals as well. Because the market is more limited up in Canada. But you go to a lot of these events, especially in the larger centers, where you are meeting the other influencers that you are effectively duking it out against to try and get those brand deals. Sometimes a brand will go to 10 different influencers, and sometimes they'll just go to one. And yet we're all supposed to get along, and we're all supposed to, be this sorority of, hashtag girl bosses and all of those things. But at the end of the day, we're all fighting each other for the paycheck.
What are those events like? I envision something like Mean Girls, but with cell phones.
Yes. They're the girls that are friendly to each other. It's a lot of frenemy behavior. A lot of us who are actually friends, most people don't publicly know that we're friends with each other. We're never photographed together. We kind of support each other behind the scenes, but it's like our friendship is in secret, which is a little bit hilarious. But then there are these little girl gangs kind of within the influencer space that, they go to, from event to event together, and they're always photographed. But, and again, it's like the things that they say when the others aren't there. I'm like, yeah, okay. Or who is on the outs now and who's not. And then, if somebody starts to, their profile starts getting raised and they're effectively, the new hotness, then, that changes everything. It's typical, how people generally are, especially, a lot of women and that kind of thing. I will say that, the adolescent garbage was not what was in the first draft of my book.
Is it annoying to the three of you to always have to be on in public? Dick's shaking his head. Leroy's shaking his head.
No. Okay, I'll jump in. To me, I'm not really on or off or anything. There's times, obviously, where I'll tell you, I was in Yorkton and I just wanted to go. There was a Brett Kissel show in Yorkton, and I never go to shows or do anything. I'm always the entertainment that's on stage. And full disclosure, I maybe lined up a date with somebody that I'd been courting for a little while. And I was like, hey, let's go out to dinner, because you can't date in a hometown in Saskatchewan, right? And I was like, hey, let's go out to dinner before, and then we'll go take in the show and everything. And that's the only time I can think to myself where like everybody in this restaurant is literally coming up to me and they're like, hey, can we get a picture with you and everything? And I just want to say how much I appreciate everybody that watches and likes and shares and comes to my shows and laughs. It just means a lot to me. And 99.9% of the time, I'm more than happy to meet people and take pictures with them. It's all good. But there's that 0.1% of the time where you're like, there's that scene at A Bad or Santa where he's like, I'm on my lunch break kind of thing. Sometimes you just want to be like, can you not like see that I am legit on a date here and just like 10 minutes?
How did your date handle it? She had to know who you are.
Well, obviously, yeah. Like, because obviously my name probably wouldn't sell me very good for the dating scene. But off of the start, it was cute. And then like 30 minutes into it, it was like, it's just like checking her phone and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Public venues are not going to work.
What about you, Leroy?
Yeah, you know what? This kind of goes back to what I was saying before about when I can take this off. If I'm out and I've got like the stuff on, like I love getting to meet people because I wouldn't be able to even do what I do without them. And it's I think like Quick Dick said, like 99.99% all positive interactions. My kid probably gets annoyed once in a while, and he's like wants to leave somewhere, and like we're getting pictures and stuff. But he's also learned to love it, because he's got to have some pretty amazing experiences because of doing this. Like last week, we were at a Winnipeg Jets playoff game, which was unreal. Earlier this week, I guess. So when I'm out and if I got the toucan sunglasses and jersey with me, like I'm right in there. Like I'm happy to meet people, and it always blows my mind how many people will stop and say hi. And I've just got to hear some really cool stories about just making people laugh in hard times, which is kind of what I love to be able to do.
There was a woman at my book club last night who said she was most excited to see Leroy was going to be on the show today because she fell down a Leroy and Leroy rabbit hole on mat leave. And apparently you made her laugh a lot in the middle of the night, which I think is a skill that you probably didn't realize that you had for a lot of people who needed it. I want to go to the phones really quickly because we do have a caller, and then I want to talk about politics. So we'll get to that in a second. But Beverly is on the line from Lashburn. Beverly, go ahead.
Hello. My reason for listening to the radio usually is quite different. I want something that will tell me the news that's really happening, and I feel CBC does that. It's probably the only source. I enjoy programs like the one you're putting on right now because it gives me some understanding of how all these influencer programs come to be and who actually has the say in what's going to be in them. Because to a great extent, most of our media now is busily trying to herd us someplace, and we don't even know who's got the prod and is busily trying to make us go to certain places. It's very difficult for ordinary people to know this. So
Dick just picked up a cattle prod as you were saying that.
Oh, so, well, I know what they are, too. I'm an old farmer. And the key word in my case, though, of course, is old.
Beverly, thank you so much for calling and for your perspective. I think there's
awesome
a lot
to
of
hear
people.
From you, Beverly.
I think there's a lot of people who don't know how it works. They just see regional or national celebrities putting their face on things. It's no different than movie stars and TV stars doing things. It's just people locally you have a parasocial relationship with. I want to talk about politics because on the podcast I had Steve Boots, who makes his living talking about politics. He makes no bones about the fact that he is left of center. Dick, you make no bones about being right of center. And I do think it's interesting watching both of your content because you get blowback from both sides. Like he gets blowback from the right, you get blowback from the left. I'm curious how much of that you internalize and also how much of it you consider.
I honestly, I try and consider everyone's opinion. I think that's what makes you, better at what you do. I'd say a lot of people in my close-knit personal groups, I don't hang out with a bunch of just complete, right of center people. I try and hang out and talk to a lot of different people, and I take in a lot of social media content that I mostly disagree with because it's just good to hear other people's opinion and be like, hey, okay, I disagree with that, but then ask yourself, why do you disagree with it and try and justify it, right? I don't know. Lots of people ask me, let me know if I'm meandering a bit too much, but a lot of people ask me, well, there's some of the things you say, aren't you afraid of getting canceled, to doing this, to doing that? That's a big part of the reason why I've left my social media account as just a side hustle. It's my opinion. It's what I do. Most of the videos that I make that are political, I'm kind of representing my community, not just my own views. And I talk to a lot of people before I make a lot of these productions that I do. I'm just here to say what I say, and I'm genuinely me. And I think, to be perfectly honest, that's kind of why the channel has had some success, is because it's just when we say I'm turned on or turned off, I'm kind of not. When I'm being quick dick, I'm still Dix and DeLorme. You're getting my opinion. It's just got a little bit more spicy barbecue sauce on it. But that being said, lots of people accuse me of being too far right of things, but I've said a lot of things and done a lot of different stuff on my channels that I think people either fall a deaf ear to or have chosen to ignore. That calls out a lot of people on the right side of the spectrum as well. Because if we can't do that to people that we maybe trust that are sent to Parliament, they're sent to Ledge to represent us. I mean, what are we really doing with this voice that we have online, right? So I think it's important to be yourself, but at the same time, you can't be afraid to say what's on your mind out of fear of being canceled. And I think I just monetarily don't depend on what I do as a social media influencer to sustain life. And I think that's maybe what sets me apart from everybody else.
I did notice, and I to your point, I did a quick skim of everyone's socials before I got on here just to see if I was going to step on any potential landmines. And I noticed, more specifically in your range, let's be honest, Dick, but I did notice that you gave credit to Buckley Belanger for flipping the North on Twitter.
Well, sure.
And so I think that's something that people might not expect from you.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, like, you just got to call things what they are, right? I've had a lot of conversations with NDP MLAs from my constituency and the leader of the NDP. I've taken pictures with them. I'm here to talk, and I have a lot of respect, although sometimes it might not seem like it. If I have no respect, it's generally across the board. But a lot of respect for people that choose to serve in public life, and I have no problem. I've had some of the best conversations I've had have been with people maybe left of center right here in Saskatchewan. But the most important places you have those conversations are across the table from somebody, either having a coffee or having a beer in real life and in person. Not to take away from what you do here. These are important conversations to have. But people are different people when they're online or hiding behind a comment or whatnot. They're different people online versus in real life. So,
Leroy, I know you really do stay away from politics. You just hope everybody has a good time. I feel like your page is, I know you love sports, but it reminds me of the people who wear T-shirts that just say, I hope both teams have fun. Is that accurate?
Yeah, when it comes to politics, this is what I wish it would be. I follow Quick Dick and I follow Steve Boots. I saw a clip. Was it John McCain who ran against Obama in the second term? I saw a clip of him at one of his rallies, and some woman started saying stuff about Obama, and he stopped her and said, "No, he's a good person. He's a family man. I respect him. We just have different opinions." And I think when it comes to politics, if everyone just kind of took that stance, like some of my best friends in the world have totally different political views than me. I don't care. Like we're still like best of friends, and I think like sometimes we just need to talk. And I think that's what's drove me nuts.
I feel
in
like
politics
you
the last
and
while.
Dick
It's
should
just been
start
fighting.
a podcast about about how you can have conversations around politics without creating enemies. Carlie, you work in a different space of the internet that doesn't involve farms or football or even travel in that kind of way, but it has its own political problems and
absolutely does.
And can you tell us a little bit about that? I don't know that the guys would even. I don't know that they're following female, stylists and beauty creators, but there's their own political.
I don't look like I follow a female stylist.
I mean,
you look like you need a beard oil brand deal. Like,
Carlie, you and I got to talk offline here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But can you talk about the politics of that kind of creator space?
I can. I mean, I'm a little bit of a different duck when it comes to this. I'm somebody that has been politically involved my entire life. Full disclosure.
No, I love that for you.
Yeah, like a lot of my family was, big NDP supporters way back in the day. My great-grandfather was friends with Tommy Douglas. But I also worked very hard on Stephen Harper's election campaign. I live in Calgary. What can I say? But and I'm a small business owner and those types of things, it's pretty easy, I think, to kind of see where my political leanings would be. I found it a little bit tricky in that In some instances, I've really spoken up about politics. I've received a lot of backlash. I try to stay fairly neutral, although anybody who knows me knows I have very strong opinions about anything. But one thing that I've really tried to do is to get my audience to go out and vote, especially if, for the women in my audience, because I know that there are places that women cannot vote. Exercise your right to vote. You have it. It's important. But if you're going to vote, please go out and inform yourself on the issues. If you aren't sure, let me know. I will, send you links to where you can find party platforms or where you can find your voter district or who your member of parliament or MLA is or things like that. And I've had a lot of people, they're like, going online and saying how disappointed they are with an election. I'm like, that's great. You might not like your local representative, but at the end of the day, and this is one of the things I've spoken about a lot, is your taxes pay their salary. So if you don't like it, go down to their office, have a phone call, go and meet them for coffee. I know a lot of the MLAs in Alberta and Saskatchewan, because I've met several of them a lot of times, as they just want to sit around and have a conversation with their constituents, whether you voted for them or not, or things like that. And I think, too, one of the things that these guys are talking about is we've lost that friendly discourse. We've lost the ability to have a friendly political conversation at the dinner table or with friends and neighbors. We've been kind of tribalized that way. But I will say, not in this election, or at least I didn't experience it, but in the last one, the Liberal Party of Canada reached out to me and tried to pay me to be an influencer to sway votes in my area to their party, which I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about that particularly. It was a kind of a new thing for me. I was a little bit surprised, but a lot of influencers I'll find, though, too, they speak out of turn. One of the things that I wrote about in my book was when the whole Free Gaza hashtag came out, so many influencers thought that this was the first conflict to ever happen in Israel. So that was a little bit startling, perhaps an indictment on the education system. But, a lot of these things, people have to really kind of take where influencers are coming from at face value and do research on their own as well, just because there are a lot of people that are really uninformed.
Have you lost followers for posting political content?
Oh, hell yes. I would say probably in the last 3 years, based on the small business that my husband and I own and political leanings or where I have, sided on certain issues, I have probably lost between 5,000 and 10,000 followers on Instagram.
Leroy, have you done anything that's lost you followers?
Yeah, my followers kind of go up and down. I think some people get mad about sponsored content and on the page, but I feel like it's just the wave of being on social media. People will love you and people will hate you. I made a whole video just based off of the mean comments people had left for me. I sat on a beach in Mexico. You read your own mean
tweets?
Yes, I sat on a beach in Mexico while I drank a pina colada and read people's mean comments, and turned it into a positive.
Dick, do you gain or lose followers based on your political posts?
Like, honestly, it's like Leroy said, it's a roller coaster. To be completely honest, I don't focus that close on how many people are following. I had no idea where that last video I did would have been for views had I not done a little bit of prep to come talk to you guys here. My feelings are a long ways away from the comment section on social media because sometimes you might just be dealing with a bot or lots of people like to say how big and tough they are and what they're going to do to you, and the chances are it's somebody that's drinking a Code Red Mountain Dew in their mom's basement that's telling you that, right? So it's you just kind of got to stay detached from it a little bit. And even when it comes down to sponsored content, I mean, I'm very careful of who I do that with, not because I'm worried whether they'll dump me as as one of their influencers, but I send them all of my content first, and I'm like, you go through all of this and then you come back to me and let me know if you want me to do this or not, because nothing's changing about who I am. I'm just going to keep being me. And that being said, I've got into business with some really great partners in what I do. And I got rules. You got to be a Canadian company. Your product has to be made in Canada, and I have to try it for at least 6 months to make sure that it's not garbage, because I don't want to peddle a bunch of garbage to my followers just for a couple of bucks. This is the kind of stuff that's important to me, not necessarily how many people are watching or liking or calling me a bearded monster in the comments.
Guys, this has been So fun. We could have done this for hours. I so appreciate you making some time for me today. This will live later on our YouTube channel, so if you want to go back and watch yourself, there's an option for that. Thank you so much, all three of you, for being here. Leroy of Leroy and Leroy, Quick Dick McDick, and Carlie Krtolica. Thank you so much for being here. We're back tomorrow for Friday. Have a great afternoon.